How is it that we often find one of the hardest people that we give advice to or follow advice from is ourselves? When we often know what the right thing to do, and we often have the right strategy in mind, we often have the right outcome that we want to have, and yet we don't want to follow our own advice, and sometimes that advice can be really simple. Let me give you the example of when you know you're really tired and you tell yourself, I need to go to bed early for a couple of nights in a row, and yet somehow we end up closer to midnight than to 9:30 p.m. night after night. And these can often fall into two different categories of we are self-sabotaging ourselves, or we are almost anti-authoritarian. In other words, what we mean by that is that you're not even letting yourself tell yourself what to do. When you're having to follow the rules all day at work, with your kids, in social situations, and then the only time that you get to be a rule breaker is often when you're with yourself. And the person you don't want to follow the rules with and the person that you want to make the difference to is yourself. So instead of going to bed early, you end up going to bed close to midnight, and the whole cycle of being overtired repeats and repeats. So if we look first at the whole self-sabotage, sometimes where we're already laying out a self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm too tired, I can't get the thing done the next day, I'm not clear-headed enough, I can't take that risk of change, I didn't put myself out there, I didn't let myself be that sense of change that is possible because I'm worried, so then I self-sabotage and I didn't go to bed early, so I'm staying up late to deliberately make myself tired, so then I can't possibly do the change, and I inevitably then go, well, I'll do it tomorrow. The never, never land of tomorrow becomes around in that cycle yet again, and so I'm self-sabotaging myself into not following my own advice. Because then if I didn't follow that advice, I didn't lose. I didn't make a mistake, I didn't fail because I didn't even start. And so that self-sabotaging is our little safeguard to ourselves against failure because we've actually never started the process. So that's often one of our keenest ways that we can do things where we don't follow our own advice because we're afraid of the change, we're afraid of the mistake, we're afraid of the failure because we have spent time after time rebuilding ourselves after failure. So I'm paying the price of staying stagnated. I'm paying this price. I don't like this price, but I'll keep paying that rather than the risk of change and possibly getting better. But then if it didn't, I put myself out there, what does that say about myself? So that's one set, and the other set is where, as we said just before, that anti-bullying, anti-authoritarian, and we're almost anti-everything when it comes down to a list and a rule and a you must do, and yet we're the one that is saying make the list. We're saying the pros and cons, and the pros outweigh the cons, and yet we don't want to be told what to do. So we're in this cycle of repeating the you can't tell me what to do. We're digging our toes in, and once again it still goes against that whole thing of, well, I don't want to fail and make the change. What if I did go to bed early and have a bad night's sleep and a restless night's sleep, and then what was the point of that? I didn't get my me time in, and yet I still didn't get sleep. And that overlooks the fact that often if we're really stressed, it does take us a few nights to get into a good sleep pattern before that cycle changes, but we don't even allow ourselves to get there. So look inward and realize, what am I afraid of? What's the thing I'm running away from? And where am I being stuck? And these things often are the reasons why we're our own worst person at taking really good advice that is actually coming from us. We're running away from ourselves instead of taking a chance and leaning towards the change that we want to make, even if it's the simple thing of just getting a better night's sleep. So instead of running away from yourself, instead of always constantly neglecting yourself and always thinking of Tomorrowland and procrastinating, lean into the good advice you want to give yourself. And if it goes awry, pick yourself up, learn from it. It's better to start something and to fail than never to start, and 365 days you're still at the start line. Whereas if you start once, fail, start again, fail, learn, and then you start chipping away at changing. So maybe you didn't get to sleep at 9:30, but maybe you got to sleep at 10 a few consistently, and then you start to change your sleep patterns, and eventually you start to actually catch up, and maybe after 2 or 3 weeks of that, you actually caught up on your sleep pattern, and then you didn't have that brain fog, and then you were able to address another problem in your life. So instead of running away and procrastinating and telling yourself, I'll do Tomorrowland, take the chance on yourself and follow your own advice. I hope this little video helps you to think about the person that's the most important person in your life, and often has wonderful advice that we should follow and we should understand, and we often have already laid out a pathway, but we just don't start. So instead of procrastinating, instead of putting off, instead of delegating it to that's future self, make it present self, and make it the problem that you're going to change today, right here, right now. I wish you the best of luck on following your own advice. Take care. Remember to be kind. The most important person to be kind to is yourself. I'll see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe. Send me a comment of what you've been procrastinating with, what your really good advice has been to yourself, and yet it took you a little while to follow it. And hopefully this little video reminds you that sometimes the things that are within us to unlock our life and make the most of it is already there. We just sometimes have to have the courage to follow our own advice. Good luck. Take care. Catch you on the next one.